Hello and welcome to the MarinMap Map Viewer application instructional video. Today I'm going to walk through all basic functions available within the Map Viewer application and show some examples of functionality available within the application. To start, I'm going to go through some general map tools that are available in the main map screen here. So I'm just going to work my way through those, and then I'm going to go through some of the other available tools and widgets available up on this top right-hand side of the header menu. So to start with the general map tools, I'll start at the top left-hand side of the application here. You can see there are these plus and minus buttons. The plus is a zoom in, and the minus is a zoom out. Those are just generic tools that come with the application automatically. You can also use your mouse wheel to scroll in and out. Below the zoom in and out buttons, we've also got a default map view button. And what this does is if you're zoomed into the map at any point and you want to get back to the default map extent, you can click this default map view home icon, and that will bring you out to that default map extent that loads when the application loads. Below the default map view button, we have got the Find My Location button. And this isn't going to be that important when you're accessing this application on the desktop browser, but if you're viewing it in a mobile application and you want to find your live location on the map, you can click this Find My Location button, and it will zoom you to your live location on the map and show you as a little blue dot on the map. Then the last part of the general map tools I'd like to walk through is the search bar. And this is kind of the home base for the application. This is where a lot of your searches are going to begin, and navigating to specific tax parcels is going to happen from this search bar here. So this search bar is set up to search either via an address tied to the tax parcels layer or a property ID tied to the tax parcels layer. So I'm going to show an example here of an address. I've just got a predetermined address here that I'm going to search for, which is 12 Beverly Way. I'm going to click that result that showed up when I ran my search, and that's going to zoom me directly to that tax parcel. And once the pop-up loads here, you'll see the pop-up with attribute information tied to that tax parcel, as well as some underlying intersecting layers and layer data you can see that are tied to that specific tax parcel. And within this pop-up, we've got a few different other links out to a street view of that tax parcel, as well as some web links to the supervisorial district. And then there's just further attribute information tied to that tax parcel here. And one thing I'd like to note with these pop-ups on the map is that at any point they can be docked to the top right-hand side of the application. If you follow my cursor here to where it says dock, I'll go ahead and click that. And now you can see a little bit larger view of that pop-up is docked in the top right-hand side of the application. And that can be done to any feature on the map that has pop-ups enabled when you click on them. And then to undock that pop-up, you just click that same button again, and it will bring it back to that default pop-up view. And I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that pop-up. And then one note with the search bar is that it's going to hold on to your search until you clear the search bar. So I'm going to go ahead and click clear here, that X button. And now you can see my selection of that tax parcel is gone from the map viewer. And we do have recent searches enabled, so if there are searches that you've made in the past during your session where you've got the application open, those will show here on your recent searches. So if you need to get back to a recent search, you can just go ahead and click that in the search bar. And then you can also delete your recent searches by just clicking this trash can icon that says recent searches. And then there is the ability to search by property ID in this search bar as well. I won't show that example. It works the exact same way as the address search. You would just type in a property ID and it would bring you directly to that tax parcel tied to that property ID. And one thing to note with these searches is that they are contains search set on the back end, so it doesn't need to be the entire address or the entire property ID. So if you only know a portion of your address or property ID, you can run that search and it will still bring you results in the search bar. Next, I would like to go up to the top right-hand side of the application and we'll work through some of these menu tools that are listed up here in the header. First, we're going to start with the map legend. That's just my first icon here. I'm going to click into that and it's going to show me all of the live layers that are referenced on the map at this time. Basically, if a layer is turned on within the map, it's going to be shown on the map legend here. And you can see what the symbology looks like for that layer, just as a little bit of a reference to what you're actually seeing on the map. As I turn more layers on in the map, they will show up in the map legend here as they're turned on. And then if I turn them off, they will be removed from the map legend. The next widget I'd like to go over is the map layers. And this is where you can control which layers are turned on and off on the map. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn on the facility group layer here and then zoom out a bit and you'll see that all of these public facilities will be showing up on the map now because I turned that group on. So pretty simplistic. The check mark defaulted to checked means that that layer is on, and then if it's not checked, that layer is off. Another thing I would like to mention about the map layers widget here is that there are several grouped layers and there are even groups within the groups. If a layer has this arrow icon next to it in the map layers widget, it means that there are grouped layers within that group. So all of these facility layers are related to the same facility group. So that whole group can be turned on and off by selecting the check mark on that group, or if the group is turned on and you want to turn off the sublayers within that group, you can go ahead and just remove those specific singular sublayers. Next, I'd like to go through what's available within the map layers in the ellipsis options menu here at the far right of a layer. Now I'm going to show this example with the schools layer because we've got several schools visible on this map view. So I'm going to click options here and we have the ability to zoom to. That will zoom to the entirety of the layer. So I won't click that now because it would zoom me basically out to that default map extent because there's schools all over the county. But we also have the ability to hide labels. So the school labels are turned on by default. As soon as that layer is turned on, the labels are shown. But I can hide those labels by clicking hide labels within that options menu. And then I can reselect show labels if I want to show those labels again. If you get a lot of map layers turned on here in the widget and the map gets a little busy, you can turn labeling on and off on specific layers if they're in the way of what you're trying to view. And then we do have the ability to update the transparency of layers. So on schools here, if you look at the actual point, the little red schoolhouse on the map, as I update the transparency, you can see it's getting more or less transparent with this slider menu. Again, that's kind of there for if your map gets a little bit busy and you don't want to see things with their full transparency, you can change that transparency on them. Next, I'd like to walk through the attribute queries widget. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. It's the third widget from the left here at the top right-hand side of the application. And within this tool, we've got several pre-configured queries. These are common queries that we identified from the original Map Viewer application and carried them over to this new version. So I'm going to walk through the tax parcels query here. Again, these are contains queries, so if you don't know a full property ID or street address of a tax parcel, you can enter only a portion of that and you'll still get a return. Now in my example, I'm going to enter in the full property ID here. So I've entered in my property ID that I'd like to query out, and I'm going to just go ahead and click Apply. And as you can see, that tax parcel has been identified in my query here, and then it's going to zoom me directly to that tax parcel. And if I select that tax parcel in the results here, you can see this line gets a little bit thicker. That is surrounding that tax parcel, just to show that that is the tax parcel that I've queried. And then to remove this attribute query, I'm just going to go ahead and click Clear Results, which is this trash can icon here. And that's going to bring me back out to my attribute query for the tax parcels. If I did my first query and I want to find another tax parcel here, I can search another property ID or another street address. And I'll just show you an example here of that contained search. So if I only know this first portion of my property ID, I can type that in and click Apply. And then you can see in my results here, I've got 14 returned tax parcels. And I can just scroll down this list of returned tax parcels and select which one I'd like, and it will zoom me directly to that tax parcel. Again, I'll click Clear Results, and that will bring me back out to my tax parcel attribute query. And then to clear this list here, I can just go ahead and click Reset, and that will remove my query entry there. I'll walk through a few other of these attribute queries. The rest of them are just going to be these simplistic drop-down menus. So if I want to query by a city, let's say I want to go to Belvedere, I'll select that from the drop-down and click Apply, and that will zoom me directly to the city limits of Belvedere. And then I can select that on the returned query here, and it will show me the city limits of Belvedere there. Again, I'll just clear those results and then reset my query, and then I'll go back and I can run another one of these queries here from the queries menu. Another example here, I'll just do a zip code example. So I've got a drop down set up here, and let's say that I want to go view the zip code of 94924. I'll select that, click Apply, and it's going to zoom me directly to that zip code. We've tried to streamline the attribute queries here. They're designed to utilize some of the commonly queried layers within this application and make it as simplistic as possible for the end user to find some of these more commonly used layers and drill down into that data. Next, I would like to walk through the Basemap gallery. Now that is this fourth widget from the left up here on the top right hand of the header. I'm going to just select that. And this is a very simplistic widget. Basically what this is going to do is control the base map that's shown behind the layers on the map. So as you can see, we've got several options here of different base maps. For this example, I'm just going to choose this Firefly Imagery Hybrid base map, and I'll select that, and then you can see all of the layers are still showing on the map, but that base map behind those layers has changed to be the aerial imagery. By default, the application opens up with the light gray canvas base map, but you do have the ability to select from any of these other base maps available here in the widget. I'll make that light gray canvas again and continue working through the rest of the widgets. The next widget I'd like to walk through is the measurement widget, and I'm going to go ahead and just select that from the top menu here. And within the measurement widget, we have the ability to measure distances or areas, so I'll walk through examples of both of those. To measure a distance, I'm just going to choose this first icon here within the measurement tool. And then you can see once I've selected that, there's a little message that will show that says start to measure by clicking in the map to place your first point. There is snapping turned on, so if you want to measure specific distances or along lines that are shown on the layers on the map, you can do that just by hovering over them, and it will select vertices or points on the lines of whatever that layer is that you'd like to measure on. For example, I'll just measure a distance along a parcel line here. And we'll just say I'm looking to find out this distance here. I can add a point just by clicking, and then to end my measurement, I'll just double click, and that will finish my measurement. You can see the default measurement unit up here in the measurement tool is imperial, which means under 1,000 feet, it's going to default to feet as my measurement unit. And as soon as I get over 1,000 feet, it's going to update to miles. But as soon as I've completed my measurement, I can come in and change the measurement unit. So let's say that I want to measure in meters here. I can just select meters and my measurement updates automatically from feet to meters. And then if you want to continue using this tool and create a new measurement, you can click New Measurement to start another new measurement, or I can just go ahead and click Clear Measurement to clear my measurement and go back to the main measurement widget here. Next, I'll walk through measuring an area. And to do that, I'm just going to select that Measure Area icon here within the measurement widget. And let's say I'm just going to measure the area of this tax parcel here. I'm going to go ahead and double click here to finish my area measurement. And you can see under 10,000 square feet, again, it's going to show my measurement in square feet. As soon as I get above 10,000 square feet, it's going to update to square miles. So I'm going to go just change this measurement unit to acres. Let's say I want to look and see how many acres this tax parcel is. I can select acres from the unit drop down here. It's going to update that measurement to acres, and then it's also going to include the perimeter measurement of my area that I measured. So the perimeter of this area is 384 feet total. And again, when I'm done with my measurement, if I want to create another measurement, I can go click New Measurement to stay within that area measurement tool, or if I'm done measuring, I can just click Clear Measurement, and then I am out of there. The next tool that I'd like to go over from the header is the Print tool. So I'm going to go ahead and click into Print. And this is a pretty basic function of the application. It's not a very in-depth tool. It is what we have to work with. So you can basically just create a quick printout of your current view of the application, and I'll walk through how we can do that here. So you can choose from a template. These are different page sizes and then page layouts. You can see there's landscape, portrait, and the A3, A4. We've got different letter A and C here. Those are the different sizes of the paper. And then if we'd like, we can also select map only here at the bottom. I'm going to go keep that at A3 landscape. And then for our example, I'll go change the map title. And then to set a few more settings on our printout here, we can click this advanced menu. And we've got a few different options here. For author, I'll just say Marin County example, and then copyright. This is a spot where I can add some notes to the map, and once it prints out, I'll show you where the author and copyright appear on the printout. For copyright here, I'll just write Marin County example 8-8-25, today's date. We'll go ahead and include the legend. So there'll be a legend on here for the layers that are shown on the map, and then we'll include a north arrow. And then we do have the ability to set the scale bar units to miles, kilometers, meters, or feet. We'll go ahead and leave this at miles. You can update the print quality. I usually just leave this at the default of 96, but you can update the DPI if you need a little bit higher quality printout. And I'm going to go ahead and just click print here. And then this is where the print widget can be a little bit confusing. People don't really know where their print goes sometimes after they click print. But if you note at the top right hand side of the print widget, we've got a results tab here and a spinning wheel. And my printout has now finished. So I'm going to go ahead and just select that. And as you can see, that opens up in a new browser tab, which will show me my printout of my current extent on the application. If layers are turned on in the application, they will be on. but this is kind of a boring map for my example. I've only got a few different layers turned on, but you can see that legend shows my timestamp, and then we've got the scale bar, the north arrow, and then down here at the bottom right, this is where the author and copyright information shows up. So if you have a little note that you need to pass this map off to, say, a different department or someone else in the municipality, you can write them a little note as to what this map might be showing. You can just right-click to save this image as, and you'll have different options for the file type that you can save into, or you can copy and paste the image if you need to include it that way. But that's how you would go save this image from the Browser tab. The next tool I'd like to go over is the Share tool, and that's going to be just to the right of the print widget. And I'm going to click into Share. And what that's going to do is basically give me a short link here that I can copy and embed into an email or a chat or wherever you need to paste that to share this application. You can also share via an embed. That's going to give you an embed URL to embed into, let's say you want to embed it into another application, web application, or something like that. You can use that. You can also create a QR code to share, which can be helpful for people that might be viewing it on a mobile device. They can take a picture of that QR code and open the application up that way. We've got the ability to share via email. That'll just open up an email with a link to this application in your default email software. And then you can share via Facebook, X, Pinterest, and LinkedIn as well. Next, I'd like to go through the table widget. This table is going to show is every single layer that's available on the application. You can see up here at the very top of the table, you can select which layer you'd like to view in a tabular fashion. There are several layers. If you continue to go down this list here, you can see there's a lot of layers to choose from. For my examples here, I'll just stay within the tax parcels layer. Within the table, you have the ability to sort by column just with a simple click. So you can sort columns ascending or descending, A to Z or Z to A. As you can see, I am sorting by property ID that way, and you can do that with any column in the map. You do have the ability to select different assets within each layer. So I'm going to go ahead and click this property ID. It should be zooming me directly to that property ID on the map. It doesn't look like that's happening right now in this example. So I'm going to attempt it here with the milepost layer. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit here and see if that helps me out. Again, I'm going to try to click this property ID. So normally, if the application is operating as expected, if you click a specific property ID or asset within a layer, it will zoom you directly to that asset on the map. For whatever reason, probably due to my screen sharing, it's not doing that during the training video here. So just know that when this application is open on your end, it should be doing that and zoom you directly to the selected asset within the table. Some of the other functions within the table here, you can show the selection. So if I've got a selection on the table here and I click Show Selection, it's going to show only my selected records. So I've got 2 tax parcels selected here in the table, and it's going to show only those 2 selected. And then to return to my default view, I can just go back to that button and select Show All. And now you can see we're back in the full view of the table there. I can also clear my selection up here on the top right menu of the table. So I'm going to do that, and now you can see I no longer have any tax parcels selected. I can also click refresh, and what that's going to do is that's going to get rid of any of those column sorts that I have run. So if I have any of those ascending or descending column sorts, that refresh will get rid of them and just go back to the default table view. And then my next option here within the table is show and hide columns. So if I want to get picky and show only specific number of columns on the table that I'm looking at, I can deselect which columns are showing. So if I just want to show my property ID and use code of the tax parcels, I can go ahead and select only those two columns and show those. Or I can clear my selection, and that will get rid of everything, and I can pick and choose then once everything's been cleared to select only those columns that I want to view. And then finally, at the top right of the table, we've got this Actions button. Within this Actions button, you have the ability to set filters on the data that you're viewing in the table. So as an example here, I'll just create a tax parcel filter, and you do have to turn this on when you're setting a filter, but you can go ahead and add a clause here. And basically when you start to add this clause, it's just going to connect to the attributes within that data. And so let's say that I want to view all tax parcels in the jurisdiction of Belvedere. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select unique from the source type because that's going to give me the unique values from the data. So it's going to show me only those populated values when I select unique here. And then I'm going to select Belvedere. And that's going to filter out all tax parcels within the city of Belvedere. As you can see, it's going to show me the total number of tax parcels in the table at the bottom left-hand side of the table here. So I'll go ahead and change this filter to Fairfax. And there are more tax parcels within Fairfax, so my table has updated to show only those. And then I can go ahead and remove any filters just by deleting the clause. And now you can see I'm viewing the full amount of my tax parcels layer here in the table again. So that filter capability can be very powerful if you want to filter anything shown in these tables, which will then in turn filter the layers shown on the map. And finally, the last capability I want to show off in the download table is the ability to export. So mainly people are going to be using this export to CSV. It will give you the ability to export these tables to spreadsheet format. And one thing I would like to note with those exports is that if you do have a data filter set on the data, when you export your data, it will be that filtered view of the data. So if you have a filter set on the tax parcels to show only those tax parcels within the city of Fairfax, that would come out with your export to CSV. So the filtering is pretty powerful, but it's one thing to note when you're running your export to spreadsheet. So exit out of the download table here. I'm just going to click the exit button there. And then the last tool I'd like to show in the application is just the help menu. That's accessible at the top right-hand side of the application. It's just a little info icon. So I've selected that. And this is just to give me a little rundown of some tips and tricks on how to use the application. So if you forget some of the things that I've walked through here in the training, this is available to you within the application to give you some reminders on what you might use to try to do what you're looking to do in the application. And at the bottom of the help text here, for accessibility purposes, we do have a link back to that table view. So if you click that bottom button in the help menu, it brings you to the download table. This is where you can run the download of that data to spreadsheet format. With that, thank you for your time, and thank you for walking through the MarinMap Map Viewer application with me. We hope you find this application functional and convenient. Thank you for your time.